On the evening of November 28, 2012, 26-year-old Emma Fillipoff walked off into the dark streets of Victoria, British Columbia. Despite the cold, she was barefoot. In the preceding weeks, her behavior had become more erratic, confused, and secretive. Many tried to help her, yet there has never been another confirmed sighting of Emma since she walked away from her life that night. What happened to Emma Fillipoff? Emma Fillipoff is 5 foot 5 inches tall and weighs between 90 and 110 pounds. She has dark brown hair and brown eyes. She earned a degree in photojournalism in Ontario and culinary arts in British Columbia. She loved to take long barefoot walks at night and drew and painted. A writer, Emma produced pages and pages of poetry in her journals. In brighter times, Emma would write,
"Becoming light, letting go of the body for the sky, nowhere to go but up, over the rainbow, heaven on earth."
There was something about Emma that drew people to her. Family and friends describe Emma as friendly, cheerful, outgoing, creative, and intelligent. She loved animals and worked as a champion for marginalized people, especially the elderly and the homeless. One friend said that she was a quiet person, yet was always quick to laugh. But Emma was also extremely private. Underneath her cheerful facade was a young woman in pain. In her diaries, there were indications that Emma had been privately suffering with mental health issues since age 11. Due to her secretive and quiet nature, she kept this hidden from her friends and family. In the winter of 2011, a childhood friend of Emma became concerned when she found Emma outside in a euphoric state, high on grass and stars. She contacted Emma's father, who offered to fly Emma home, but Emma, stubborn and independent, refused. The same friend described Emma taking walks for as long as 8 hours. Her friend went with her once and found Emma traveling through the suburbs of Victoria. Emma would spread the leaves that people had raked up in their yards. This, Emma said, would help nature. It was the way Emma approached this that concerned her friend. It seemed to Emma that she had no choice in the matter. It was her duty. Again, Emma would refuse help. Emma appeared to be suffering from schizophrenia. Unfortunately, she was too independent or too deep into the illness to seek the help she so desperately needed. After Emma's parents divorced, she longed to get away from home.
My parents' marriage in shambles. My father turning to me. My mother hating us both for his doing so. And me, always a good listener, too nice to say it hurt me too. I am my mother, and I took on much of her pain and my father's. Home, the only place I cannot be. So deep beneath the skin, I cannot breathe.
In 2011, when Emma was 25, she moved west from her hometown of Perth, Ontario, to Vancouver Island and settled in the city of Victoria. She didn't have a job lined up or even a place to stay. She told friends that something amazing was going to happen to her. At first, things went well. By that winter, she'd secured a job as a barista and was soon living on her own. But after a few months, Emma was let go and could no longer afford her apartment. becoming homeless. She bounced around from place to place, staying with friends, living in a hotel where she had found work cleaning rooms, or sleeping on a friend's boat. When she had nowhere else to go, she sometimes slept alone in the woods. From February to November of 2012, Emma stayed part-time in the attic at the Sandy Merriman Women's Shelter. She had a seasonal job at the Redfish Bluefish Eatery in the Inner Harbor, which ended in October. But both she and her managers expected her to resume come spring. In mid-November, she told friends that she was leaving Victoria and possibly heading to Salt Spring Island or Tofino, BC. She spoke at length about many plans to many people, sailing on a boat to Mexico, heading to San Juan with a man she barely knew, moving to California, moving to Costa Rica, traveling to Japan with her father, living off the grid somewhere in the woods, visiting an aunt in Lanceville, BC, and surprising her family by going back home to Perth, Ontario. A couple of weeks before her disappearance, the staff of the Sandy Merriman Women's Shelter observed a change in Emma's personality. She canceled dates with friends. She stopped drinking and smoking, which up until then, she had both done regularly. Her diet consisted of a little bit of fish and massive amounts of water. The shelter employees, who usually found Emma to be cheerful and friendly, began to be afraid of her. They once witnessed her frantically moving furniture across the street, complaining that the objects were too loud and were talking to her. Emma started giving her things away, which she always did before a move or other significant life change. The girl who had been a magnet for so many friends was, in her mind, alone and isolated.
Haven't been able to be in touch with anyone for support because I haven't sent open communication with them. I have no friends in this city, no family, and I am, for all intents and purposes, alone and depressed.
A friend, returning from a trip, saw Emma standing in the rain by the shelter staring blankly at a murder of crows. Exhausted from jet lag and delays, she decided not to stop. She would see Emma another day.
There is the promise of flight, and I lay in fear. Somehow, somewhere, sometime, fear crept in. She is missing. I am missing.
Starting on November 23rd, Emma made a series of calls to her mother, Shelley Fillipoff. Overwhelmed and in tears, she told Shelley that she wanted to come home. Repeatedly, Emma asked her mother to come out from Ontario and help her move, only to change her mind the next day. Each time, Shelley packed her bags, only to unpack them the following morning. Emma and Shelley spoke every day, from Friday, November 23rd to Wednesday, the 28th. Shelley redialed the number on her phone's caller ID. She was shocked to discover that Sandy Merriman was the name of a woman's shelter, not a friend of Emma, as she had assumed. On the morning of November 28th, Emma called her mom for the final time, telling Shelley,
"Don't come, Mom. Not today."
But this time, Shelley kept her bag packed and got on a flight to Victoria. Emma began the day of November 28th at the Chateau Victoria Hotel. She owned a red Mazda MPV, which at one point held the promise of freedom and motion. But now the broken-down van was more of a hindrance. On November 21st, she had the van towed from Souk, BC, to the 700 block of Burdett Street in Victoria. She had it moved again because of parking enforcement. Finally, she left it in the parking lot of the Chateau Victoria, who threatened to have it impounded. A tearful Emma asked for one more day to move the van. They agreed. At 8:23 a.m., Emma showed up on surveillance video at the 7-Eleven at the corner of Douglas and Humboldt Streets. She used her debit card to purchase a $200 prepaid credit card. Emma had a few $1,000s in her bank account and didn't need the prepaid Visa. She had told a friend she was going to use the prepaid Visa to rent a car. Julian Hua, a friend of Emma's from Perth, would see Emma at 10 a.m. He was on a bus headed to renew his medical card when he saw Emma standing on the side of the road. Julian got off the bus a few blocks early. He only saw Emma from the back and can't see her face. He decides to register for his health card, but when he finished, Emma was still there. This time, Julian stepped into the street and looked into her hoodie. Emma is wearing a light puffy coat, her hoodie pulled over her head, and her long hair was flowing out in all directions. Julian asked her if she needed help, and Emma shook her head no. Julian had grown fond of Emma when he knew her in Perth, but now he decided Emma wouldn't accept assistance from anyone. He walked off. Julian would later become a suspect in Emma's disappearance. Accused in the court of social media, Julian would then withdraw from the public. In an interview he gave to the nighttime podcast with Jordan Bonapart, he comes across in that interview as another friend of Emma's who was deeply saddened by her disappearance. At around noon that day, Emma may have visited the library, where she liked to sit and read in the children's section. Afterward, Emma was seen by several people in downtown Victoria. Due to her strange behavior, she stood out like a sore thumb. At 1 p.m., Emma shuffled vacant-eyed along Pandora Street. According to a witness, she was wearing camouflage pants and a fleece jacket. Notably, she wasn't wearing a hat. Her hair looked freshly washed, and she carried several white plastic bags along with her orange purse. In the early afternoon, a colleague from the Red Fish Bluefish restaurant bumped into Emma near our place, Soup Kitchen, on Pandora Street. Emma said she wasn't feeling well and couldn't talk. He asked her if she wanted a hug, and she retreated with a horrified look on her face. By the late afternoon, 2 people called police when they saw Emma pacing back and forth on Douglas Street, looking agitated and frightened. Another man reported seeing Emma at the Rock Bay shelter. What Emma was doing there is uncertain. She refused to stay at Rock Bay because it was co-ed, and in the weeks before she went missing, Emma seemed more and more frightened of men. Between 4 and 6 p.m., Emma was seen twice. A witness who knew her stated that they saw Emma shuffling slowly northward on Douglas Street, away from the shelter, and then later again at the corner of Douglas and Finlayson Street. Emma glanced their way and gave them a sad smile, as if she were holding back tears. Evident like technology, but at 5:54 p.m., Emma returned to 7-Eleven, where she had purchased the prepaid credit card earlier in the day and bought a prepaid cell phone. She had never owned a cell phone before. On the way out of the store, she nervously peered out the window over and over, as if she were afraid to leave the safety of the building.
I feel like someone is following me. A car on the hill when I rose, and then drove as I walked by and paused in the street. I feel weird sometimes. I feel like I'm being stalked.
The cell phone was never activated. Emma returned to the Sandy Merriman shelter at 6 p.m. and was told by the staff that her mother was on her way. Emma grabbed her bags and flew out the door, never to return. To this day, Shelley doesn't know how the shelter knew she was coming. She hadn't told them. At 6:10 p.m., on the street in front of the shelter, Emma jumped into a cab and asked to go to the airport. but suddenly changed her mind, telling the cabbie that she couldn't afford the fare. Authorities later found that she had $3,000 in her bank account. What's more, she had left her passport, laptop, journals, camera, and recently borrowed library books in her van, all of which she would have needed if she were planning to leave. Instead of leaving, she asked the cab driver if she could just sit in his cab for a while, but then became frightened by his dispatch radio and bolted from the car. Dennis Quay bumped into Emma Fillipoff standing barefoot near the Empress Hotel at 6:15 p.m. He started walking with her. Dennis had met Emma before at the library, where they had struck up a conversation about Japan, and he had talked to her a couple of times at the Redfish Bluefish restaurant where she worked. But this wasn't the bright-eyed and cheerful Emma he remembered. She seemed depressed and disoriented. As she shuffled slowly along, Emma acted paranoid and kept looking around as if someone was following her. Dennis became so concerned that he slipped into a restaurant to call the police. 15 minutes later, the police arrived. Dennis left, thinking that Emma was in good hands. The police found Emma standing shoeless in front of the Empress Hotel on Government Street. Emma told them that she was working through some things and was going for a walk, and then she would go to her friend's house. She nodded yes or no to most of the questions and offered no additional information except what she was asked. Unable to find any legal reason to detain her, the police let her walk off barefoot into the rainy Victoria night. That was the last confirmed sighting of Emma Fillipoff. Shelley Fillipoff landed at Victoria International Airport, grabbed her bag, and flagged a taxi. She arrived at the Sandy Merriman Women's Shelter at 11 p.m. Emma wasn't there and hadn't claimed her bed for the night. After conferring together about their mutual concern over Emma's behavior, the shelter's supervisor and Shelley decided to call the police. The police arrived, and by midnight on November 29th, Emma was listed as a missing person. Later, authorities discovered Emma's laptop in her van. She wrote the following: a year to the day before she disappeared.
To everyone from Dead Emma. Hello. I figured someone would be on this computer at some point and will read this. Okay, so I'm dead. Watching dying stars, reviving stars, and dreaming milky dreams, and shadow dancing on your timelines or whatever. Good luck, every heart. I love you. M.
On December 2nd, 3 days after Emma's disappearance, a woman described meeting a girl she thought was Emma at the Inn Harbor in Victoria. Emma gave the woman advice about how to frame a photograph she was taking. The girl told the woman to repeat the name Emma Fillipoff 3 times. The woman also claimed that Emma was smoking, which was something Emma had done in the past, but had supposedly given up. The sighting was never confirmed. 6 days after Emma disappeared, the $200 prepaid credit card Emma purchased the day she went missing was used at a Petro-Canada station. A transient man used the card to buy cigarettes. The man claimed that he found the card by the side of the road near the Juan de Fuca Recreation Center and the Galloping Goose Trail in Colwood. The police polygraphed the man and cleared him, although he later admitted to Shelley Fillipoff that he was a heavy drinker and that he wasn't sure where he'd found the card. On the morning of November 29th, 2012, at around 5 a.m., a man recalled picking up a woman who resembled Emma in Esquimalt, BC. She was soaking wet and wanted to be taken to Colwood to see a friend. Late for work, he dropped her off at the corner of Craigflower and Admiral Street. He last saw Emma moving in the direction of Colwood. This account was not reported until 2018, however, and would not be followed up on by the Victoria Police Department. After she disappeared, the police found Emma's journals. Later, these journals would be given to Shelley, who still has them to this day. Within those pages, Shelley discovered a stranger who had struggled with mental illness silently and alone.
I chased death all my life because I was dead. Sleeping was an escape from all the pain, and stories were the sweet music rain. I love my mom, but I couldn't cause her pain.
In the weeks before Emma went missing, many people tried to help her, but she slipped silently through the safety net that was around her. Now, it is Emma's mom, Shelley, who keeps the torch alive. Thanks to Shelley, Emma's case was featured on the Fifth Estate, Canada's version of 2020, in 2014. Shelley has been a guest on numerous podcasts, such as the Nighttime Podcast with Jordan Bonapart and The Vanished, hosted by Marissa Jones. A team of investigators led by Shelley follows up on every tip they get via their Help Find Emma website. In 2018, Shelley and Kimberly Bordage raised funds to pay the expenses for a team of cadaver dogs to search the lakes around Victoria. Nothing was found, and 8 years on, the search continues. Our hearts go out to Shelley Fillipoff and all the friends and family who keep the memory of Emma. Help us find Emma. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Emma Fillipoff, please reach out to Shelley Fillipoff at the link below this video. If you want to hear more stories of the missing, please like, share, and subscribe. And please support us on Patreon. Thank you for watching.